Hunt Palmer. Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Holding down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Thursday. Working towards the weekend. Got Casey Gaines and Jacob Beck back there on the ones and twos. Lots and lots and lots to talk about. Saints changing kickers? Maybe. Saints in the market for a running back? Maybe. Got an anniversary to get to later today. College football news over at The Athletic. They ranked college football quarterbacks in tiers. Not T-E-A-R-S. T-I-E-R-S. Spelling. Right there. Ranked college football quarterbacks with that 2 o'clock. We always chat with Joe Healy from D1 Baseball at 2:15 on Thursdays. We'll preview all the supers with him. And we'll get a lot of baseball here in the first hour as well. I'm going to, in 15 minutes, walk you through the LSU-Kentucky series from back in April. And I will give you kind of a blow-by-blow and some of my takeaways from my memories of it, and then going back, rewatching the highlights, looking through the box scores and whatnot, and kind of piecing it all together. So that'll come up in 15 minutes from right now. But I want to start off with the Golden Spikes finalists. This is a big deal. Golden Spikes Award, top amateur player in baseball. Not necessarily college. Bryce Harper won it. Wasn't playing in college baseball. He's a JUCO. But just your top amateur baseball player. And there are 3 finalists. And 2 of them are from right here at LSU. By now you are well aware. Dylan Cruz and Paul Skeens are finalists with this award for Jack Caglione from Florida. All 3 of these guys have had absolutely monstrous seasons. And when you think about the illustrious history of LSU baseball, there's been one Golden Spikes winner. Ben McDonald won it. Todd Walker didn't win it. Brandon Larson didn't win it. Brad Cressy didn't win it. Blake Dean didn't win it. Alex Bregman didn't win it. Aaron Nola didn't win it. Only one, Ben McDonald, in the history. And there's just not that many things that puts you in that type of rarefied air in Baton Rouge. Usually when you accomplish something, it's been done by somebody else. In this case, it would only have been one person if Dylan Cruz or Paul Skeens could win this award. I make no bones about my rooting interest in college sports. I make no bones about rule changes in my acceptance or rejectance of them based on what their effect is on LSU. I want LSU to do well. That's my interest. You know that by now. And I'm not going to hide from that ever. I kind of got some positive reinforcement on that one. Scott Van Pelt once said, everybody's from somewhere. And then I started listening to ESPN Chicago as that became available to me down here. And they're all big Bears fans, big Cubs fans, big White Sox fans. And they make this thing work. So I don't try in any way to be objective in terms of my rooting interest. I do try at times to be objective with my analysis when I present it to you. So I took these 3 seasons, Jack Caglione, Dylan Cruz, and Paul Skeens, and I tried to determine just who it was that should be the winner of the Golden Spikes. And before I get into the statistics, I'll just give you my conclusion. This is remarkably close. There is simply not a runaway winner here. If the only way I can see this vote getting sideways and somebody coming out way ahead is if somehow there's some sort of split between Paul Skeens and Dylan Cruz, which they're all down here in the SEC. They're all in the Southeast. There's not enough voters that are right down the middle with these two that I think it's going to matter. I think it's going to be really close, and I'll give you the case for all 3 guys. And then I'll give you my thoughts on who I think will win the award. We'll start with Jack Caglione. You're familiar with what he's done. You understand he's a two-way guy. You understand the power and the numbers that he's put on throughout the entire season. He's hit 31 home runs, which leads college baseball. He's hitting .337 on the year. His on base is .401, so he gets on base about 40% of the time. His 84 RBIs are 5th in the country, and his 194 total bases are second in the country. It's a remarkable run with the bat. No question about it. The slugging is out of control. That many home runs, that many total bases, that many driven in. He's just a big swing. You compare that to Dylan Cruz, who's reached base in all 61 games. His on-base percentage is .573. That is 170 points north of Caglione in terms of on-base. He's scored 87 times. That's second in college baseball. His batting average is .432. That's almost 100 points north of Caglione. He leads the SEC in batting average, hits, on-base percentage, runs, walks, all those categories. Dylan Cruz first, and by far and away the best baseball conference in college baseball. But the power numbers are not near Caglione at 31 home runs. He's got plenty of power. Been what 2 years ago would have been a prodigious power hitter. But when you look at Caglione with 31 home runs and you pull back to Cruz, who's at 17, you're almost half. And then you got Caglione on the mound. He's 7-3 with a 3.78 ERA, 69 innings, 81 strikeouts. 49 walks are high, but the opponent batting average is impressive at 184. Now, he has not been oftentimes a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 inning guy. He's more often been like a 3, 4 inning guy. Walks have hurt him a little bit. He lost his starting role for a little bit. So it hasn't been nearly SEC Pitcher of the Year type stuff, but it's quality innings in the SEC. Now, Skeens is the SEC Pitcher of the Year. He's 11-2, a 1.9 ERA, which is fourth in the country. He leads the SEC in opponent batting average, ERA, innings pitched, strikeouts, wins, the whole lot. And 10 of Skeens' starts, which I guess he made 14 during the season, one in Hoover and one. So he's made 16 starts. In 10 of those, he's allowed 0 or 1 run. That's amazing. So Caglione, to me, has not had as complete an offensive season as Cruz and has not been nearly the pitcher that Skeens has been. However, doing them both is absolutely bananas and absolutely deserves strong consideration for this award. So when I say that he's not as good a hitter as Cruz and he's not as good a pitcher as Skeens, that sounds like I'm dismissing it. I'm doing the opposite. I'm absolutely astounded that a player could step in and be that good on both sides. And home runs mean a lot. And he's got a ton of them. So, to me, I think the Golden Spikes Award winner should be Jack Caglione. That's who I think should win the award. The question is, who do I think is going to win the award? And I think that will be Dylan Cruz. I think Dylan Cruz, and what he's done over 3 years, and the profile he created over those 3 years, and the remarkable season he's had where he's hitting .432 and may set LSU's batting average record and was the Southeastern Conference Player of the Year for the second time and is likely going to be the first pick in the draft and has been so impressive for the vast majority of this entire season outside of a little bitty 2-week blip. I think Dylan Cruz will win the award. I'm just amazed at Caglione's ability to pitch at that level to a 184 opponent batting average, go 7-3, strike out 81 guys in 69 innings, and set a Florida record for home runs and be second in Southeastern Conference history in homers. To me, that's unbelievable. And I would give him the award. However, I believe Dylan Cruz will win it in the same way that Grant Delpit won the Thorpe Award a year after he should have won it because of kind of a lifetime achievement type deal. I think Cruz will get it. And I hope that Dylan Cruz wins this award. Because I'm trying as hard as I can to get Dylan Cruz to be recognized as the greatest player ever played at LSU. And I believe if he wins this award and continues what he did last weekend, this coming weekend, and in Nebraska over the next 2 weeks, you'll have a pretty strong case. It'd be a 3-year remarkable run of consistency with a championship, 2-time SEC Player of the Year, and Golden Spikes Award winner. He would then have a resume that no one else could touch in terms of accomplishments. If you want to sit here and say that Todd Walker was a better hitter, I can't dispute that, you saying that. But Todd Walker never won the Golden Spikes. And Todd Walker wasn't the first pick in the draft. So there are some things that Cruz could achieve that Walker didn't. And I don't want to dismiss Todd Walker, far from it. I wish I would have seen his career. I was too young and too far away. But it's been kind of my goal for 3 years to kind of push that movement forward with Cruz being the best player to ever play at LSU, and this would be a huge add-on. Now, it wouldn't surprise me in the least if Paul Skeens won National Player of the Year. I don't think anybody's dominated the sport to the degree that Skeens has. He's 11-2, and you had a loss of his that was in a game that he had to come out after 3 innings where he'd struck out 8 guys in 3 innings. And you had a loss in Hoover where he came out of the game before he would have. Then LSU lost a game he pitched against Arkansas, but he was phenomenal in that game. So I'm not trying to poo-poo Paul Skeens at all. I'm not going to be surprised if any of these 3 win it. You've got the best hitter in the country, the best pitcher in the country, and a guy who's done two-way better than I've seen in a very, very long time. He's better than A.J. Reed. I wasn't around for Tim Hudson, but this is pretty salty, what Caglione has done. So I think that differentiation that he's doing both is such a strong thing. But the pitching's not nearly what Skeens was. The hitting with Cruz is comparable. I just think the Lifetime Achievement Award is going to go to Dylan Cruz. That'd be just fine with me. That'll be our Citizens Bank and Trust poll question of the day. Who do you think will win the Golden Spikes Award? Jack Caglione, Dylan Cruz, or Paul Skeens? We'll tally those votes up and get the answers at the end of the show. Thursday show here. I want to remind you, we will be at Rouse's tomorrow. Excited to do that. My show and then Matt's show. So from 1 to 6 p.m., we'll be at the Rouse's, Burbank and Lee, just kind of getting you ready for LSU Super Regional Baseball. So looking to do your weekend grocery shopping, come see us. Hang out, watch the show, chat with us a little bit, and get your shopping done over there at Rouse's, Burbank and Lee. We're fired up to be there tomorrow from 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock for the Hunt Palmer Show and after further review. Take a time out. When we come back, I will walk you through LSU series with Kentucky, and I'll give you some takeaways that I didn't necessarily remember until I went back and kind of dove into the numbers and the video. That's next on the Hunt Palmer Show.
This is Hunt Palmer. Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
Follow us on Twitter at 1045ESPN to cast your vote in the Citizens Bank and Trust poll of the day. Vote daily inside Off the Bench, live at lunch, Hunt Palmer. And after further review, Citizens Bank and Trust brings you the poll of the day via Twitter at 1045ESPN.
The importance of doing this fortified program and offering it to people down here is, number one, the only real chance you're going to get to do this is when you put on a new roof or build new. And through companies like HUDCO, who's kind of leading the way in this thing, it's going to offer the customers a huge advantage in the insurance market and the price of their insurance.
You know, we're not looking to make a fortune off fortifying. We're trying to give you a better product than our competitor at the moment. I'm trying to do something that he can. I'm trying to give you something better. So a lot of these insurance shops, you're getting a re-roof, you're only paying your deductible. Let's sit down and talk about the fortified and let's see what it does to your insurance premium. You're getting a steal.
Yeah.
You're getting a brand new roof and a fortified certificate for your deductible, essentially. I think we're rocking and rolling.
Hey there, little buddy. What's the matter?
What's the matter? My windows, siding, and my door. That's what's the matter.
Relief Windows can fix all of that. I got you. Pop, pop. What's up?
Oh my gosh, look!
Curb appeal. That's a good-looking neighborhood. ReliefWindows.com.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly.
Charles Hanniger, join us for the Friday edition of Live at Lunch. We are live at Rufino's starting at 11 a.m. Super regional action will start when we do, and we're previewing more of LSU in Kentucky. Live at Lunch, 11 a.m. weekdays, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Thanks for hanging out with us on a Thursday. Hunt Palmer Show working towards the weekend. Let's take a look back at LSU and Kentucky in April. It was April 13th, 14th, and 15th. Kentucky came into Alex Box Stadium. Full disclosure, and some of you will remember this, that weekend I went out to L.A., went to Disneyland with the kiddo and the wife and some friends and caught a Cubs-Dodgers game. But I was keeping up with LSU in Kentucky. I was in the New Orleans airport for the Thursday game as we were delayed, and I was just watching on my phone, walking around the airport with a beer, watching Myers do whatever he does, walking around the airport terminal. Saturday, on Friday, I went to Disneyland, and I was watching on my phone, and I will get to the Braden Joubert dropped fly ball when I was walking out of Disneyland and was not in a very good mood. And then Saturday, we left brunch, and everybody wanted to take a nap, and it gave me a perfect window to sit down at the house that I was at while they all took a nap before the Cubs game and watch LSU and Kentucky in its entirety. So I didn't go to the LSU-Kentucky series, but I did keep an eye on it while we were out in California. So let's go through it, and I'll just kind of bring up some things and give you some takeaways when we look at the teams now versus when we looked at the teams then. It was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series, if you'll recall. And LSU and Kentucky got things cranked up on Thursday night. It was Paul Skeens against Zach Heise. And Nick Mingione looked at Skeens, looked at what he's been doing, looked at his pitching staff, knew they had no chance to keep up on Thursday. He just gave the game away. I said it that Thursday on my show. I believe it to this second. He absolutely gave up on Thursday. He threw a kid out there that had no chance, and LSU hit a grand slam in the first in a 6-run inning and a grand slam in the second. Jordan Thompson hit a grand slam in the first. Braden Joubert hit a grand slam in the second. Beloso hit a 3-run homer in the third. After 3 innings, it was 14-1 LSU. Kentucky just threw their hands up in that game, and LSU bashed them all over the yard. Now, that's the big takeaway from that game. That's how it went. It was 14-1 literally after 3 innings. So the rest of that game is what it is. Now, if you look at Paul Skeen's stat line in that game, and that's something that Kentucky will continue to bring up. We had the voice of Kentucky on yesterday, and we've heard from Jeff Drummond, who covers Kentucky. He was on Matt's show on Tuesday, I believe, and both mentioned that Kentucky really did the best job against Skeens outside of Arkansas all year. And if you look at the line, that's true. It was a 6-inning start. Skeens gave up 7 hits and 5 runs. 4 were earned. He walked 1 and struck out 13. So the strikeout numbers were really good, but Kentucky did get 7 hits and scored 5 runs on Paul Skeens, which most don't do. So I looked at that, and I was like, well, how'd that happen? So they scored 1 run in the second. It was legitimate. They got a couple singles through the middle, and they scored a run in the second inning on Skeens. They got 2 in the fourth and 2 in the fifth. In the fourth inning off Skeens, they hit a ground ball single on a fastball. They hit another ground ball single on a fastball, and then got a fastball up and out over the plate and ripped it in the gap for a 2-run double. So legitimate. Got a couple hits on fastball. They were all 3 on fastballs, which he's going to throw a lot of in that case, and they scored those 2 runs legitimately. And then in the fifth, they drew a walk. They had a bunt single, which you're going to see a lot of this weekend. And then they barreled up a 2-run double that was a line drive right down the right field line. So by my count, those 5 runs were legitimate. Now, it wasn't thunderous, and it was very much in Kentucky style. Grounding balls through the infield, base hit, and then finally got the 1 big swing. And the key guy for Kentucky in that game was Petre. Emilian Petre hits 4th for them. He's their second baseman. He did then. He was 4 for 4 that night, scored a couple runs and drove in 3. He was really, really good. However, I don't know that you got Skeens' full attention there when it was 14-1. Just my thoughts on the matter. It is also the game where Gavin Dugas dove up the middle and got hurt. That was when he hurt his right shoulder diving up the middle for a line drive. So I'm sure you all remember that. That was the Thursday night game. So the Friday game, Kentucky won it 13-10. It was Logan Martin against Ty Floyd, and I think there was a lot to draw from this game. It was Cruz had in the first inning, Ty Floyd goes out there, and Dylan Cruz makes 2 unbelievable defensive plays. Kentucky hit Ty Floyd pretty hard in the first inning. Cruz made 1 play literally jumping into the wall and made a catch, and then with 2 outs and 2 on base, he made a play diving in towards second base. He saved at least 2 runs in that inning. So they saw Ty Floyd pretty good in that first inning. They hit a 2-run homer off of Ty Floyd in the second inning. It was a guy who was hitting like 150. His name was Chase Stanky, and he homered into the right field bleachers off of Floyd. Then Floyd settled in a little bit, and LSU's bats got rolling, and they took the lead in the game, and then they took a 6-2 lead in the 4th inning. So LSU led 6-2, and Kentucky won this game because they scored 5 runs in the 5th and 5 runs in the 7th. Well, how did that happen? Well, in the 5-run 5th inning that gave Kentucky the lead, they had scored 1 run, and they had the bases loaded, and they hit a pop-up to right field, and Braden Jobert overran it, and it fell in play, and 3 runs scored, and then they hit a single after that. So that was 2, 3, 4, and 5 runs. Total gifts. Not a ball hit hard, a routine, easy play, and Braden Jobert just flat whiffed it. And Kentucky, instead of scoring 1 run, scored 5 runs. And then they scored 5 more in the 7th inning. Well, how'd they do that? Well, here's how that inning went. Hit by pitch, bunt for a base hit by pitch, off the end of the bat, flare into center field for a single, a sac fly that was a pop-up, a single, a walk, an infield single, and a sac fly. In that inning, they scored 5 runs. They hit the ball remotely hard once. In a 5-run inning, they hit the ball hard once. Now, Kentucky's great at bunt singles, and they get hit a lot. But that's how they got a 5 spot. Wasn't a bunch of guys jumping on first pitch heaters and lining it off the wall. It was walks, hit by pitches, infield single, and 1 single through the infield. Not a single extra base hit to be seen in that inning. To me, that's kind of a tough way to make a living. Counting on the right fielder to drop a ball and then a bunch of seeing eye hits and hit by pitches. What we're going to talk about a lot for the next 2 days for LSU is don't give them anything. Make this Kentucky lineup earn it. If they drop down a bunt single, so be it. Don't hit them, don't walk them, and catch the ball. The odds of Kentucky against LSU's staff barreling up enough baseballs to score enough runs to win are not very good. You start walking guys, you start hitting guys specifically, and you start making really poor defensive plays, you open the door wide open. Wide open. And that's what LSU did in this Friday game. One bad play in the outfield leads to a 5-run fifth, and LSU not executing at all leads to a 5-run seventh. And LSU fought back into it. They scored 1 in the 7th and 3 in the 8th and had guys on base in the 8th inning, but weren't able to complete it. Incidentally, Darren Williams is one of Kentucky's better arms. You're going to see him in a big spot either as a start or out of the bullpen. Tommy White hit a home run off him in this game that I just made a note on because it was 113 miles per hour exit velo off the bat. It hit halfway up the batter's eye on a line drive, and it was just a remarkable thing to see. So I made a note of it. So look, that was Kentucky's best offensive output of the weekend, and I think LSU had a big part in that personally. And then you go to the rubber game on Saturday, and actually Christian Little got LSU off to a really good start in that game. He threw 3 1/3 innings and did not give up a hit. However, he did issue 3 walks, and Kentucky in the 4th inning scored their first run on 3 little walks and a Guidry hit by pitch. They scored 1 run in that inning, 3 walks and a hit by pitch LSU gave them. Again, it goes back to that. They're patient. They will get hit. Todd Walker was on live at lunch earlier, said, look, they don't flinch. You throw it in there, they're going to get hit. Same thing with LSU. Same thing with Beloso and, of course, Dugas. Morgan gets hit a lot. Same thing with those guys. Tommy White gets hit a lot. But that's something you can't do. Kentucky in this game on Saturday, game 3 of the series, did not have a base hit into the outfield through 5 innings. But because of walks, you gave them a couple of runs. LSU issued 8 on the day that day. Little had 3, Guidry had 3, Hurd and Collins threw in a pair. And I thought LSU in this game swung the bat really well. They had 9 hits and 7 runs, but Kentucky, with a credit to them in that game on Saturday, had a 3-run 7th that included some really good swings. So, to me, Kentucky hit, I think, 2 home runs in this series, and LSU was peppering the ball out of the yard. LSU had 2 grand slams in the first 2 innings. But LSU really swung the bats well in this weekend. In game 1, we know they went nuts. They scored 16 runs on 8 hits. In game 2, they lost and scored 10 runs on 9 hits. And then in game 3, they won and scored 7 runs on 9 hits. So you add the runs together, you got 33 runs on 9, 17, on 26 hits. That's plenty to win. Well, it's over 10 runs a game. But as we've mentioned a few times, Kentucky has changed its weekend rotation entirely from what it was this weekend. I mentioned at the top that Zach Hayes, who started their Thursday game, is a non-factor. He is a non-factor. Logan Martin has not been a starter for them. He started the second game of the series and went an inning and a third. And Tyler Bosma started game 3. He has not been a weekend starter for them. But the guys that have been good for them, Zach Lee is one of them. And that's a guy that I'll kind of break down tomorrow as far as scouting and what his numbers are and what it looks like and all that. But Zach Lee did pitch in this series. He pitched in the 3rd game. He threw an inning and a third, and LSU scored 3 earned runs on 4 hits in an inning and a third off of Zach Lee. The guy who was lights out for Kentucky in the regional out of the bullpen was Mason Moore. He had 2 different 5-inning shutout performances in the regional, so 10 innings of shutout baseball. He threw 2 2/3 in this series, and LSU scored 2 runs on him with a hit and 3 walks. So LSU has seen their good arms. Darren Williams, I mentioned, may get a weekend start. I think it's probably likely. He threw 3 innings in the second game. LSU had 3 hits, 2 walks, and scored 3 runs in those 3 innings. So Kentucky did not have a single guy that came in the series and was any sort of shutdown arm. They had a bunch of guys at LSU lit up pretty good. And Kentucky did score a lot, but if LSU, I think, can throw strikes and catch the ball, Kentucky's style of offense is not built to keep up with LSU's. Just my 2 cents from going back on that weekend series. Wanted to do that. I think it's worthwhile. I'll get into some deeper scouting report stuff, season-long stuff, regional pass stuff coming up on tomorrow's show, but I wanted to kind of do that here on a Thursday. All right, we still got a lot to get to here in hour number 1. We got an anniversary to get to at the end of the hour, but when we come back, are the Saints considering a kicking change very seriously, and a very high-profile free agent is about to hit the market? Are the Saints interested? He's made some Pro Bowls. That's next.
This is on Palmer. In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Oh, hey, what's up? It's Big V and Bubba, 100.7 The Tiger Morning Show. We'd love for you to join us every weekday, 4 a.m. till 9 a.m.
Yeah, everything you want in a show. Country music. We got laughs. We got celebrity in-studio guests. We just need you.
Join us every weekday morning, 4 a.m. to 9 a.m., right where it all started.
That's right. Louisiana's country station, 100.7 The Tiger.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Hey there, little buddy. What's the matter?
What's the matter? My windows, siding, and my door. That's what's the matter.
Relief Windows can fix all that. I got you. Pop, pop. What's up?
Oh my gosh, look!
Curb appeal. That's a good-looking neighborhood. ReliefWindows.com.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Moscona inviting you to join us for Thursday's AFR, presented by the Aesthetic Medicine and Anti-Aging Clinics of Louisiana. LSU wrapping up preps for Super Regionals against Kentucky. Saints wrapping up OTAs. We'll talk about it. Join us 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Very much looking forward to chatting with Joe Healy of D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Team coming up at 2:15, as we always do on Thursdays. We'll go around the horn in SEC action, and guess what? Joe's got a pretty good perspective on LSU's opponent coming up this weekend, being that they're in the SEC. So excited to chat with Joe at 2:15, as we always do. But let's shift over to football. The New Orleans Saints going through OTAs at the moment, and there's a lot of news and whatnot coming out, and you kind of filter it. This seems important, this doesn't. I'm not real sure. I'm way fired up about the third-team quarterback. I don't really know what's going on with the offensive lineman or defensive lineman, but hey, kickers. You may be able to tell something from OTAs on kickers. John Seigler, who covers the Saints over there at Yahoo, believes that there may be a kicking competition here in New Orleans. Of course, Will Lutz is one of the better kickers in the history of the Saints. Certainly one of the best in the Sean Payton era. You go back to Morton Anderson and whatnot, I got you. But this is a guy who, while Sean Payton was sifting through kickers at a remarkable rate, finally found one and said, hey, this is a guy we can use. And Lutz was fantastic early in his career. He was a guy who, after his rookie year in 2016, you go to 2017, 86%, 93%, 88%. And then you go to the COVID year, and then you have the core injury that Will Lutz sustained, and he missed the 2021 season. The Saints were revolving door at kicker, couldn't find anything. It cost them games. It was a disaster trying to find Saints kickers in 2021. But he returned in 2022, and I'll be pretty honest with you, it wasn't great in 2022. We were caught up in the quarterback play and the injuries and the defensive line and what all. The kicker wasn't very good either. Lutz was perfect under 30, 6 for 6, but he missed 2 under 40, and from 40 to 49, he was just 50% at 4 of 8. And he missed a couple outside of 50, 4 of 6. I'm not going to penalize him too much for that, but I don't need you missing 2 kicks under 40, and I certainly don't need you missing half of them between 40 and 49. Last year, Will Lutz only converted 74% of his field goals. That's not good enough. And the only thing I can remotely relate to in the world of NFL football is kicking. Because I myself try to hit golf shots straight. I don't ever block anybody. I don't ever throw passes. I don't ever do swim moves. I don't ever set up in pass protection or chip defensive ends. But I do use a swinging motion to try to strike a ball in the correct direction. And there's some similarities in the golf shot and the kick. You can draw it, you can slice it, you can hit it solid, you can hit it fat, you can hit it too low. I got it all. I got all those shots too, I promise you. More often the hook, but we don't need to talk about that. But there's a mental aspect to the golf swing, and there's certainly a mental aspect to kicking. And we believe that Will Lutz was physically healthy last year. We don't have any reason to believe that injury lingered from missing the entire 2021 season. But the production wasn't good enough. And there are so few kicking jobs and so many guys willing to give it a shot that you can move on from kickers pretty quickly. Sean Payton is evidence of that, right? This guy missed a couple. Where's the next guy? Give me a workout. Monday morning in the facility, 9 a.m., give me 4 kickers. You can find them. And you just try to find the guy. And Will Lutz has been the guy since 2016. But I think there's reason to bring in some competition, and the Saints did. They bring in competition in the form of undrafted rookie Blake Group from Notre Dame. Apparently, on Tuesday, Group was a perfect 5 for 5 on field goals. He made a 59-yarder. And look, that's practice. Guys can make 59-yarders in practice all day long. And how you look in Metairie in June may not be much of an indication of how you're going to look in Tampa Bay in September with the game on the line, right? Those are two different things. But Lutz hasn't been a more than 55-yard guy for the most of his career. He's only 5 of 12 from 55-plus in his career. And this guy hammered home a 59-yarder. Stands to reason his leg may be a little bit better. Group was at Arkansas State and then moved on to Notre Dame, but in his college career, kicking is kind of kicking. I think we learned a little bit of that when you bring in, I'm blanking. It's the guy before Cade York, hit the field goal against Auburn. Cole Tracy. You brought Cole Tracy in, and he could kick at Assumption. He could kick in Tiger Stadium. Kicking is kind of kicking. The game doesn't speed up too much. And this is a guy who at Arkansas State was very, very good. He was 96% on extra points, 74% on field goals. It's not quite what Lutz has been, but it's what he was last year. And maybe this is a guy that now can pour all his attention into kicking and can be a little bit better. This is a spot where I think grooming some competition is very, very healthy. If you want a creative situation, and this doesn't apply to the Saints with Derek Carr because he's the starter, but you want to name a starting quarterback to allow that person to be the leader of the team, and you don't want to foster a ton of competition in that spot because that's going to be your guy, okay. At kicker, give me everybody you got. Lutz, I appreciate how great you've been, and you have every opportunity to be the guy on this team, but we're going to push you. And I think Lutz understands. I think anybody who kicks in the NFL understands that to be the case. I think Justin Tucker feels pretty comfortable with his job. Most of the rest of them know you're about a week from being on the chopping block. Some of you have got some more skins on the wall, and Lutz would qualify, but maybe last year was kind of a sign that, hey, we may need to start looking elsewhere. So there's potentially a battle at field goal kicker for the New Orleans Saints. And I think that's a healthy thing. Probably pulling for Will Lutz because my wife very much enjoys watching Will Lutz play. Her only qualifications for favorite players throughout sports are that you post on Instagram a lot with your family and show how much you love them. And apparently Will Lutz does that a lot, so she loves him. Same thing with Thomas Morstead. She was devastated when Thomas Morstead moved along because he posts a lot of pictures with him and his family on Instagram. Cam Jordan's the same way. She loves Cam Jordan. If you don't post enough pictures of your family, you don't show how much you love them, she's not as big a fan. But if that's what you do, you're a favorite player. And that's why she loves Will Lutz. So she's obviously a big-time football analyst with that kind of criteria. But I digress. She's probably pulling for Will Lutz to win that because I don't have any idea how often Blake Group posts about his family on Instagram. So we may have to check into that, maybe report back in training camp. But that's the situation over in New Orleans. Will Lutz, maybe a little competition, which I think would be a very, very good thing for the Saints. A lot happening here in hour number one. Talked a lot of baseball. There's a little football for you. College football, The Athletic, college football's page on The Athletic, ranked college football quarterbacks in tiers entering this season was Bruce Feldman, Stuart Mandel, and I'm curious to get into that a little bit deeper and kind of pick it apart. They've got like 5 tiers of quarterbacks of relevance, and I'll tell you where Jaden Daniels ranks. I'll tell you where Jordan Travis ranks, which surprised me a little bit. Joe Healy is going to be with us at 2:15 talking about all the super regionals. Certainly got some take it or leave it. When we come back, something we like to do on this show, especially at the end of hour number one, sometimes there's an anniversary we want to get to. We will do that coming up next.
This is On Palmer. Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram has $20,000 off new 22 Ram 1500 SCA trucks and incredible deals on all remaining 2022 inventory, all with Bayou's 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
Hello, Samantha, dear, I hope you're feeling fine. And it won't be long until I'm with you all Send my love down the
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Hey there, little buddy. What's the matter?
What's the matter? My windows, siding, and my door. That's what's the matter.
Relief Windows can fix all that. I got you. Pop, pop. What's up?
Oh my gosh, look!
Curb appeal. That's a good-looking neighborhood. ReliefWindows.com.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you.
Miami Heat look to even up the series at 2 games apiece when they host the Denver Nuggets in Game 4 of the NBA Finals. That's Friday night at 7:30 p.m. right here on your home for the 2023 NBA Finals. 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Tomorrow we'll be at Rouse's, Burbank, and Lee. Hunt Palmer Show, and after further review, we'll be broadcasting live from the Rouse's, Burbank, and Lee, getting you ready for Super Regional Weekend. Very much looking forward to that. So if you're looking to get your Friday afternoon grocery shopping knocked out, come by and see us. We'll be chatting. I'll probably hang out for a little bit of Matt's show and then head on home for the weekend. But we invite y'all to come out to Rouse's. Appreciate them for having us tomorrow. All right, we do anniversaries here from time to time on the Hunt Palmer Show. Usually kind of put them right here on the back end of hour number 1. And for this one, you got to go back 17 years. I think y'all remember it when you hear the call.
The stretch by Mars in the pitch. Swung on and hit the right field. That's way back there. Way back there. Home run! Tigers win! Tigers win! Home run! It's a 2-run home run! And the Tigers win the national champ! I don't believe it! His first home run of the year! Holy cow!
Makes the hair on my arm stand up. I don't know. I can't speak for every listener of the show. I can't speak for every single one of them. But I don't think there's anyone that gets tired of hearing that call. It was Jim, in my opinion, his greatest call of an LSU sporting event. It was the biggest moment I think he ever called. Not the biggest sport, and he saw a couple national championships on the football side for certain. But that was, I thought, his greatest. The emotion, the description, it's way back there, home run. And the moment, you just never get tired of it. And I wish so dearly that I would have been a little older, because I remember watching it. I was at my parents' house on Brittany Drive in Shreveport, and I went running through the house. But I don't think it registers quite as much with an 8-year-old as it would me now. If LSU hit a walk-off home run to win the College World Series today, I might lose it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I would do, but I believe was the greatest call that Jim ever made, and certainly the greatest moment in LSU baseball and college baseball history. We'll hear it from the other side as we go back 17 years ago. This was Sean McDonough.
Now Warren Morris hits a deep drive down the right field line. That ball is gone! LSU wins the College World Series on a home run by Morris.
The whole story, and I'm sure you've all watched the SEC Network piece on it about how he had the hamate bone. He came back and he only bunted. Why in the world they had a guy in the lineup who was only going to bunt? I'm not really sure. In that era of baseball, where everybody was bashing it out all over the field, and Warren's just out there dropping bunts down. But he was obviously a tremendous player, and he went on to play in the big leagues, and Skip knew how good he was. And finally, it felt good on the last day. And I think one of the things as I got older I did not remember is that Tim Lanier, who was such an emotional leader on that team, struck out in that huge spot. You got the tying run on third base with one out. You've just got to drive that run in, and he gets that Morrison slider and swings over the top of it, and then famously looks at Warren Morrison and says, "Hey, pick me up." And Warren walks out there, and you knew that Morrison was going to go to that best pitch. He was going to go to the slider, and he went to that hammer slider down and in to the left-hander, and it snuck over the right field wall. The picture that Beck's got up here right behind me of Morris with his arms over his head, and then iconically the future manager of the Red Sox is laying on his stomach beating the ground. And years later, I went to Fairgrounds Field in Shreveport, and you know who were teammates in the minor leagues playing against the Shreveport Captains? Double-A was Brad Cressy and Robbie Morrison, the closer from Miami and LSU's best player from a couple years later. And Brad Cressy, and my dad was like, "You want to go see Cressy?" And he showed me. He's like, "That's Robbie Morrison. He was the pitcher when Morris hit that home run." But truly, one of the greatest moments in the history of LSU athletics, the best moment in the history of LSU baseball, and it was 17 years ago. 17. No, that's 27. Is that right? Yeah, 27 years ago. That just seems unfathomable. It was that long ago. 19. Yeah, because I was 8. That makes sense. 27 years ago. Warren Morris hits the home run to win the College World Series. Love doing flashbacks here. We used to do Throwback Thursday and do a whole football game. And we've done some anniversaries, some very good, national championships and whatnot, some not so good. I think we did the no call one time, but get to throw Warren Morris in there when we got a super regional coming up this weekend to throw some positive vibes in the mix. I'm always going to feel pretty good about that. And still, every time I hear Jim make that call, the hair on my arms just stands up because it was just such an unbelievable moment. And hat tip to Bill Franquez in the chair there, who didn't say a word as Jim was illustrating the greatest moment in the history of that sport. So the 27-year anniversary of Warren Morris hitting a 2-run homer to beat Miami in the 1997 College World Series. 1996 College World Series. I got all those years wrong 4 times in a row, but you get the point. You remember the Warren Morris play. That's it for hour number 1 here on a Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Went through my 3 Golden Spikes finalists at the top of the show. Told you who I would vote for and who I think will win the award. Gave you a real breakdown of LSU and Kentucky's first series this weekend and how that went back in April. Saints maybe looking at a chance at a new kicker, potentially. That's what we did at 1:30. In the second hour, we're going to get on to some college football. The Athletic ranked the quarterbacks in college football in some tiers. Joe Healy from D1 Baseball is going to join us to talk about the Super Regional, specifically Florida and South Carolina, as well as LSU and Kentucky. And didn't get to the story about the Saints potentially adding a running back. So I will do that in hour number 2 as well. If you missed any of hour number 1, catch it on demand. 1045ESPN.com's on demand tab, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, anywhere you get your sound, or of course on YouTube. You can find hour number 1 and any of our shows that we post there every single day. We'll take a time out for SportsCenter. When we come back, we're talking college football. Where does Jaden Daniels rank among the elites of college quarterbacks? That's next.
Bayou Ford has $15,000 off plus 0.9% APR for 60 months on all new 22 Ford F-150 SCA trucks and incredible deals on all remaining 2022 inventory. All with Bayou's 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
Turn my music high, 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 high. Yeah. You don't know what you're doing. Sure I do. I'm from the streets with a hood to swallow on me. Bullets will follow on me. There's so much that you could run the slalom. The cops comb this top to bottom. They say that we are prone to violence, but it's home sweet home. With personalities clashing, chrome meets chrome. Prices up and down like this Wall Street.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Doug Brown. ESPN's Adam Schefter reports the Vikings will cut veteran running back Dalvin Cook if they can't work out a trade today. By cutting Cook, the team will save $9 million in cap space. Where will Cook land? ESPN's Booger McFarland.
You start to think of teams that are going to run the ball a lot, man. You know, teams like the Miami Dolphins. I think him being from South Florida, the ties, he went to Florida State. Oftentimes when things make too much sense, you know, we tend to kind of gloss over them. But, I mean, it makes too much sense for him to go to the Dolphins.
Booger McFarland on Greeny. The Giants canceled today's OTA due to the smoke from Canadian wildfires. For the same reason, today's Diamondbacks-Nationals game in D.C. was postponed. It'll be made up later in June. ESPN's Mark Schlabach reports even with this week's stunning golf merger announcement, LIV Golf is not going away. A LIV official tells Schlabach LIV will still be a standalone entity. Notre Dame Athletic Director Jack Swarbrick will step down early next year. He'll be replaced by NBC Sports Chairman Pete Bavacqua.
How would you love a chance to save some money on car insurance? Geico can help. Switch today and see all the ways you could save with great rates and discounts. It's easy. Simply go to geico.com to get a rate quote and get started seeing how much you could save.
Now, Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Holding down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge Studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour number 2 on a Thursday, Hunt Palmer Show. 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Appreciate you hanging out with us here. Joe Healy in 15 minutes talking all things college baseball, super regionals. But we're doing a little football here at the top of the hour. And the Athletic does a number of things throughout the offseason. But one of the things that they do is on their college football page is take questions via the chat. And apparently there was a question that was sent in the chat that they put on the Audible, their podcast with Stuart Mandel and Bruce Feldman about KJ Jefferson at Arkansas and what tier he might belong to in terms of college football quarterbacks entering the next season. And I thought it was interesting that they then took it and then actually created a tier list of college football quarterbacks. And I'm working towards Jaden Daniels here, but humor me as I get there. In tier 1, they only have one player. Caleb Williams, to Stuart Mandel and Bruce Feldman, is in a class by himself in college football entering this season. And I get that. Got some hardware. Makes sense. They said he produced nearly 5,000 yards of offense, 42 touchdowns, just 5 picks last year. Stuart Mandel says, I put him among the elite of the elite to come through college recently. Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, etc. So that's tier 1. Tier 2, they've got Drake May and Michael Penix Jr. Drake May is thought of so highly among draft experts, and we understand that there may have been some phone calls from Tuscaloosa headed in his direction to see if he had any interest, and he's kind of UNC royalty, and he decided he was going to stay at North Carolina. Michael Penix obviously started his career in the Big Ten and has headed over to Washington, and last year in Kalen DeBoer's first season, he basically catapulted Washington from 4-8 to 11-2. He's got a huge arm. He puts up tons of stats. Okay, I get those two guys who are probably going to be first-round picks in next year's draft. And then in Tier 3 is where they get to KJ Jefferson, but they also lump Jaden Daniels in here. And you lump in Jaden Daniels with Frank Harris of UTSA. I'm not going to tell you I've ever heard of that person. With Grayson McCall. Okay, gotcha there. J.J. McCarthy from Michigan. Bo Nix at Oregon, who had a great year last year. I think a lot of us down here would say, oh, Bo Nix, that guy was kind of mediocre at Auburn, but he was much better at Oregon last year. Michael Pratt at Tulane and Devin Leary of Kentucky. And, you know, to me, when I look at Jaden Daniels coming in Tier 3, I don't remember a time where LSU had a quarterback entering into the season that anyone would have put in the top 7 or 8 in college football. Can you remember that? Certainly Burrow got there. We gotcha. But after that first year, was anybody in a hurry to put him in the top 7 quarterbacks in the country? No. But basically everyone does that now. You look at Stuart Mandel talking about Daniels, said he's arguably not on the same level yet as a pure passer, but he also ran for 885 yards last year and can scramble and extend plays. We know that. That's not anything breaking news worthy. But the point of this discussion is to say that Jaden Daniels is thought of as a top 10 quarterback in college football. And I don't know that we can recall a time where LSU had that entering a season. I thought about maybe Jamarcus Russell, so I went and looked at the stats. In his sophomore year, 2005, he completed 60% of his throws for 2,400 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 9 picks. Now, the talent's unbelievable. Like, he could throw it a mile, but it really, at that point, he wasn't a star in college football at all. Burrow wasn't, Flynn wasn't. Mettenberger's last year was great, but his year before that wasn't all that great. This is about as good a season that an LSU quarterback has come off of that I can remember. Hodson? Booty? Herb Tyler? So this, to me, maybe in my life, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. If you're in the Bayou 4 chat and you could think of a glaring example that I'm just whiffing on here, maybe in my life, this is the first time that I could preseason sit here and talk about LSU's quarterback winning the Heisman Trophy, and it's not just fantasy land. I know. They just won one 4 years ago. I saw it. Preseason, if you'd have said, I think Burrow might win the Heisman, that sounds pretty stupid. He was pretty good in this, the overtime game against A&M, and yeah, nice job after you got decked in the Fiesta Bowl, but Heisman, come on. But, Jaden Daniels could win the Heisman. He's going to have to play great, and LSU's going to have to win a lot of games, and there are some really good players that'll be in competition for it. But, am I out of line here? Because this is not the first time we've done this exercise with the tier list of college football quarterbacks entering the season. And at no point is Jaden Daniels not in the first 8 or 9 names you mentioned. I know that LSU fans will sit here and they'll say, well, he waits too long in the pocket. He's indecisive. He doesn't take shots down the field. He runs too much. And some of that is true in instances. But the fact of the matter is that he put up a ton of numbers last year. He's as athletic as any quarterback in college football. And oh, by the way, this team should be pretty good. Those are all ingredients to win the Heisman. Would I bet 100 of my dollars that Jaden Daniels is going to win the Heisman Trophy? Probably not. Not a big gambler. But I don't think it's lighting money on fire. And that's a cool feeling around here. Because, as I always mention, the hopeometer always reaches its apex at the end of August. But sometimes it's a little bit delusional. Because you're baked in here and you're in Baton Rouge and you want the best for LSU and you've gotten all these positive reports from going out to practice and it's just your purple and gold taking over because nothing negative has happened with your football team in 9-10 months. But this is not purple and gold fantasy land. This is 2 national writers for The Athletic. This is national writers for ESPN. These are non-LSU Tigers that work for the SEC Network that are saying, the Daniels guy's really good, and I kind of like this LSU team. Who's Bama's quarterback? LSU might win the league. That's not purple and gold fantasy land right here around this studio. That's people who cover this thing on a national basis that are just looking at what they've saw, looking at what they've seen, looking at the numbers and saying, hey, this guy could be it. And Bo Nix got some Heisman love late last year. J.J. McCarthy got some Heisman love late last year. And you're lumping him in with that. You're putting him right behind Drake May and Michael Penix and another notch behind Caleb Williams, who did win the award. it's a different feeling, and I can't think of another time in my life that you could say, I think LSU's quarterback might win the Heisman Trophy, and you're not just blowing smoke. Sounds good to me. I hope he does win the Heisman Trophy. That would be really fun. Make for a good fall here. It's going to be a fun summer and a good fall camp, and then they'll get to work, and he's got some work to do in the first game of the season. The interesting thing that I came about here in this tier list is that Jordan Travis is not next to Jaden Daniels in tier 3. They bump him down to tier 4 with Cam Rising and Dylan Gabriel and Talia Tagovailoa. And that shocked me because I always think of, in terms of college prospects, that Jordan Travis would be up higher than that. Maybe not for the NFL. Doesn't have a huge arm. He's not big. But for college. And, well, Mandel says, Travis turns in no shortage of highlight plays, but I'd like to see him perform a little bit better in big games. He struggled against Clemson and Florida last year, and I said, he did? I didn't remember that. So I went back and looked. And against Florida, Jordan Travis was 13 of 30 for 270 yards, a touchdown, no picks. So not super awesome. Against Clemson, 24 of 42, that's 57%, 2 touchdowns, no picks. I didn't think that was some sort of awful performance. Now, I can't say I sat there and watched every play of it, but, you know, that's a tick down from what I've seen on the Jordan Travis radar. But people think highly of Jaden Daniels. That's a good thing around here in Baton Rouge. All right, we'll flip back to baseball. Coming up, Joe Healy joins us every single Thursday. He's from the D1 Baseball SEC Extra team. We'll talk all things regionals and super regionals next.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
LWCC is Louisiana Loyal, elevating and celebrating champions of Louisiana. Acadian Company is certainly a champion of Louisiana. I love telling you about the Hometown Heroes program that Acadian Companies is involved with. They partner with local high schools, and they train and prepare students for a career as a licensed EMT. That provides a career path in this state for a young person and makes a difference saving people's lives. What more can you ask for there? Bettering young people's lives and saving sick people's lives. Acadian Companies is partnered with that Hometown Heroes program. And look, they were founded in 1971 by a duo who recognized the need for local emergency medical support, and they quickly established themselves as an early industry trailblazer. That's what you know the most about Acadian. That's certainly very, very important. We love to focus on the philanthropic stuff that Acadian does, and that's what makes them a champion of Louisiana. If you know a champion of Louisiana, we want to tell their story. Go to lwcc.com/champions and nominate a champion of Louisiana. It could be a person, could be a nonprofit, could be a company like Acadian Companies. We want to tell their story. lwcc.com/champions to nominate a champion of Louisiana. Acadian Companies is a champion of Louisiana. LWCC is Louisiana Loyal.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Hey there, little buddy. What's the matter?
What's the matter? My windows, siding, and my door. That's what's the matter.
Relief Windows can fix all that. I got you. Pop, pop. What's up?
Oh my gosh, look!
Curb appeal. That's a good-looking neighborhood. ReliefWindows.com.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Follow us on Twitter at 1045ESPN to cast your vote in the Citizens Bank and Trust poll of the day. Vote daily inside Off the Bench, live at lunch, Hunt Palmer. And after further review, Citizens Bank and Trust brings you the poll of the day via Twitter at 1045ESPN.
All right, let's say ah.
Where'd my spotlight go?
Super weird, but we can take care of it.
Get in and get better at Patient Plus.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
On Friday's OTB, the final day before the Supers begin. That's right, we get you ready for Tigers versus Wildcats. And we get you ready for the weekend. Off the Bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Moving right along here, Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. It is Thursday. It is 2:15. That means we're headed to the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Chat with our guy, Joe Healy of D1 Baseball's SEC Extra team. Joe, how are you?
Doing pretty well. Excited to head down to your neck of the woods for this weekend's action in Baton Rouge, and looking forward to what is pretty routinely the best weekend of college baseball action, just because it's quality across the board. And, you know, getting to Omaha, kind of like how in college basketball, sometimes it feels like the Final Four is the destination for so many teams. It's similar with the College World Series. So just a fun weekend all around.
It certainly will be. Didn't know you were coming down, so I will see you up in the press box at Alec Box at some point over the weekend. Let's go back to regionals before we go to the Supers. Post-mortem on a couple of teams. I was really high on Arkansas entering postseason play. I thought they had their pitching figured out. I thought they were getting healthier, and they win in that stadium far more often than they don't. And then they sent Hagen Smith out there, and he gave up 8 runs in an inning of work. How surprised were you to see the Hogs pitching falter?
Yeah, very. I mean, it's just something we don't see from Arkansas. I mean, yes, they lost that 2021 Super Regional, but they actually pitched their butts off in that regional. It was in that Super Regional, and it was the offense that was kind of undid them there. So this was a little bit different. You know, they typically figure enough things out on the mound, and you and I have talked about that a lot this year. And I'm willing to chalk it up. Look, I understand Arkansas fans are frustrated, but you know, you just never expect to throw Hagen Smith out there and have that kind of outing. But those outings happen. And oh, by the way, TCU is a team that's had stretches. Now, they've not been extended stretches, but they've had stretches this year where they look like they could be a top 10 team. And so they can do this to you. And it just so happens that they chose to start doing this again as the postseason is underway, which is unfortunate timing for Arkansas.
What do you make of Texas A&M season as a whole now that it's in the rearview mirror?
It's a great question. I mean, I think it was a team that maybe from my perspective, leads to some realization that I think doing the revamping in the transfer portal on the fly was a good idea for the first year, because they needed to get some talent on that roster. But now, because that was an older team, this team was an older team. With Texas A&M, I think a key for them moving forward is going to be, we've got to get some stud freshmen in here. And look, Jace Laviolette's one of those guys. Like they nailed that, right? But they need more like him, and especially on the mound moving forward. Because the other thing is, look, they've hired one of the best pitching coaches in the game in Nate Yeskie. No one will argue that. But his track record at Oregon State was largely based on getting a guy that was kind of this moldable clay And by the time that person became a junior or a senior, if it was a 4-year pitcher, they were an all-conference type of arm that might not have been that when they arrived at Oregon State. And so with the pitching turning over year after year after year, I think it's a little bit harder for him to do those types of things. Now, that doesn't mean he can't get great things out of them. There have been some success stories. Brandon Garcia turned into arguably their best reliever, and he was a guy that had horrible numbers at Quinnipiac the last couple of years. So there are success stories, but he was a guy who was known for his pitching development, and with as much as the pitching staff has turned over the last 2 years, I just don't know that there's been a whole lot of runway for pitchers to develop like that.
What did you make of LSU's performance in a regional win?
Yeah, I think it was solid. I mean, nothing to get over the moon about, nothing to worry about too much. I thought they just held serve, and I think the best thing about it from their standpoint is if they were the best opportunity for someone to get them this postseason was going to be in a regional, because that's when you can stretch the pitching. If they had been forced by Oregon State to go into a final game there, I think that could have been some trouble. But they kept it on schedule, and they just kind of took care of business, and took care of business against a field that I thought was pretty winnable. Sam Houston was a comfortable matchup for them if that had been the ultimate matchup. Obviously, Tulane was just a team that got hot for a week, and Oregon State is a solid team, but came in kind of hampered by some injuries and inconsistency. And LSU did what you're supposed to do when you're a host team in that situation and just took care of business. So, I've been asked a lot about LSU, not just obviously on your show, but just in other shows I've done this week. And a couple things that I've liked is one, we're not getting. I think you and I might have devoted more time to talking about Thatcher Hurd than any other single human being on the show this year. You're not getting, at least lately, the chaos start from him. The one where it's like, we can't let this guy throw another pitch. That seems to have largely stopped. So again, we can throw away the idea he's going to be a dominant arm, but can he be solid enough? Maybe we're there now. The other thing is, I'm sure you've noticed, is that LSU seems to know who their guys are now. They've kind of stopped experimenting. And I think that's good news. Now, will it be enough? We'll find out. But I do like that it feels like, okay, we know who we're going into the foxhole with on the mound, and it's either going to work or it's not. There's no more just rolling the dice on, and I don't want to name names because that'll be mean-spirited, but we're not going to roll the dice on this guy or that guy that we're just kind of doing so on a hope and a prayer. Like, we're going to stick with the guys who got us here.
If you need a nugget you covered 14 teams, so I drilled down on one, but if you need a nugget for writing or podcasting, or Thatcher Hurd didn't get an out against Tennessee, and I know because I was sitting there watching it, just miserable. And he went out there to start and did not record an out before he was taken out of the game. So yeah, he looks to be much the better from the middle of the season for sure. All right, let's move forward into the Super Regionals. You got a couple of all SECs, but let's start with Alabama going up to Wake. Do you give them any chance?
I give them a chance. I think there are a couple things that matter there. One is that this is different for Wake. This is a program that doesn't have experience at this stage. They barely have postseason experience, this group. I mean, they got to a regional last year, but weren't really a threat. They weren't quite ready for that. This year, obviously, they clearly are. It's a whole different deal. But winning a Super in front of a crowd that is going to be excited and kind of expectant, and for a group that's inexperienced like that, that can be overwhelming. So we'll see how they deal with that moment there. That's one factor. The other is that Alabama's playing pretty well right now, and they're clearly a team playing not just well, but loose and fun. Like they're really out there kind of playing for each other, which is a cliche, but you just see it coming through with that team. And a big key for Alabama to me is, can you introduce some doubt to Wake Forest early on in that series? Because if you let Wake Forest just kind of settle into the game, I think that's bad news. If you're Alabama, you want to come in there and throw the first punch, because Wake really hasn't been tested all that much this year. And I think you want to introduce the idea of, oh, wait a minute, are we, can we, what's happening? Kind of the same thing with Tennessee last year at Notre Dame. You want to introduce that idea of, like, we've never had to do this. Like, what is happening here? We're not able to just kind of cruise the way we normally do. So whether or not Alabama can do that, we'll see, but that feels important.
Chatting with Joe Healy, D1 baseball, part of the SEC Extra team. He and Mark Athers do an awesome job covering college baseball, specifically in the SEC. All SEC regional over in Gainesville. We know that South Carolina swept the Gators once upon a time. Things looking a little bit different on that South Carolina team, but they found something last weekend, whether it was a weak regional or playing really, really good baseball. What did you see from South Carolina last weekend?
Yeah, it looked a lot better. I mean, they were really never challenged. I mean, that NC State game looks pretty close on paper, 6-3, but that really didn't tell the whole story of how not close that game felt in the moment. So I think a good draw helped. I mean, those were comfortable teams, Campbell, NC State, Central Connecticut. That's no disrespect to those teams, but they felt like comfortable matchups for South Carolina. The other thing is this team is right now is as healthy as it is going to get. And by that I mean, Noah Hall's not coming back, right? But Will Sanders came back out of the bullpen. Low leverage situations last weekend, I get it, but looked as good as he's looked since that one start when he first came back from his injury, when we all kind of thought maybe he'd turned a corner. But I think at this stage, if you're South Carolina, don't mess around with the idea of putting him back in the rotation. Just throw him in the bullpen. Let his stuff work. His stuff does play up in the bullpen. We have enough evidence to know that's the case. Just let him do that and reap the rewards of that. Offensively, Will McGillis being back seemed to be a spark plug. And that's really no surprise just from the standpoint of he was one of their best bats when he went down. And also, he's an older guy. He's been in big games. He played at Southern Miss for 4 years, and they're in the postseason every single year. So he's got plenty of experience in big, pressure-packed games. So it doesn't surprise me all that much that he's back in the lineup, and suddenly it seems like that unit's in a lot better place. Now, the sweep of Florida earlier this season was kind of a catalyst for both teams in opposite directions. Florida was an excellent team after that point. South Carolina really fell off after that point. I think this series is going to be obviously much more competitive than that one. The onus is going to be on South Carolina to show that this past weekend wasn't just good matchups and that they're actually playing better baseball. But I'm not really sure I'd like any team's chances of going into Gainesville right now and winning 2 out of 3.
Nor do I. I like Kevin O'Sullivan's team down in Gainesville this weekend. All right, LSU and Kentucky, you will be here. What you got your eye on?
For me, it's can Kentucky just keep this from being a deluge of big innings? Because they do seem to have kind of figured some things out on the mound. Now, they've always been a depth team versus a star quality team, especially on the mound. But Zach Lee has looked like a different pitcher the last 4 weeks, 6 weeks maybe. And he's going to be a key piece whenever he pitches because he's a sinker guy. And keeping the ball on the ground is going to be huge here because, as you and I both know, talked about before, Kentucky can't really afford to get down 6-0. I mean, you look at the games that played in Baton Rouge. One, they took advantage of an LSU pitching staff that was really scuffling at the time and scored 13 runs. And then they lost a 7-6 game, 1-run game there. And so if you keep the scores in that range, I like Kentucky's chances of being competitive. But they really can't, especially now that LSU seems to have solidified the pitching a little bit. I don't think Kentucky can come in and expect to score 13 runs, A, and then B, win games if the scores are approaching or over double digits. I just don't think that's going to be a good recipe for success for Kentucky. And the Wildcats are in a tough position too, because you're going to get Skeens game 1, and I know they hit him okay the first time around, but that felt like a one-off. And so mentally, if you're Kentucky, it's hard not to feel like you're going into the series already down the game. And that's just mentally. It was one of the reasons why I thought that LSU was going to be really dangerous in the super regional round is because mentally any team, it's not just Kentucky, any team is going to go into the series thinking, we're going to have to come back from a 1 down because that's the reality of schemes.
And I can think of 2 specific instances where LSU head coaches have manipulated their ace because of weather. Jay alluded to it this past week when he went to Skeens against Tulane, that potentially Saturday and Sunday didn't look very good. And I know for a fact that Paul Maneri held Kevin Gaussman, who was a sophomore and draft eligible, and pitched freshman Aaron Nola, who wasn't Aaron Nola yet, in the Friday Stony Brook game because he didn't like the weather forecast in that one, which it ended up getting. Aaron pitched deep into the game, but they did have to stop that game that went into extra innings because of weather. So I wouldn't be stunned if Skeens goes in game 2 based on weather because it doesn't look awesome on Saturday, but it's going to be a cat and mouse game, and apparently Nick Mingione's not announcing starters until an hour before the game like Jay Johnson isn't, so it'll just be both guys running the lineup card up there, and we'll see what happens. One kind of tactical question for you here, and I'm curious your thoughts on this because it'll be something that I talk about on my show tomorrow. We know that Kentucky steals a lot. We know that they bunt a lot. Hayden Travinski is not a great defensive player, but he's now entrenched as your cleanup hitter. Do you move him to DH and sit Beloso to play Alex Milazzo at catcher, or do you just ride with Travinski at catcher and Beloso and deal with the hitting and running and the stealing and the bunting and all that with a lesser defensive catcher?
I think you got to go the defensive route because I think the reality of the situation is if you can cut Kentucky's small ball game off at the knees, I think you can contain Kentucky. They're not a team that's going to string together 5 or 6 hits in a row. Usually, they're talented players. They can do that. They're also not a team that's going to hit 6 or 8 home runs over the course of a weekend, more than likely. So if you can just keep them from being able to do the, get them on, get them over, get them in thing and score 1 run every inning on you, which is kind of their goal, I think you can completely kneecap what they're trying to do offensively. So I would, I would sacrifice almost anything short of, taking some of your real best bats, the Cruz, Tommy White class of player out of the lineup in order to have some better defense in there. So I expect Trey Morgan to play a lot of first base because you don't want to give Kentucky extra outs. I would put Milazzo defensively at catcher, understanding that lineup I think should be good enough regardless. Even if you don't have a Cade Beloso in the lineup, I think you should be okay if you're LSU, but you've got to prioritize the defensive piece here, because if you go back and look at the times Kentucky has struggled, it's when they swing and miss a lot offensively and just can't get guys on base. That's a check for LSU, for their pitching staff. And then furthermore, just getting cut down on the bases and having a lot of innings that get blown up because guys get thrown out, guys get into rundowns, et cetera, et cetera.
Last one here, Joe. We appreciate your time. Who's your Golden Spikes pick?
I think it's got to be Skeens. I mean, this is an unprecedented season. I mean, the best comparison I've gotten, it's been said before, this is not me coming up with this, was Steven Strasburg, but he was doing that at a Mountain West school, not an SEC school in 2023. So that, to me, that's just so far and above any sort of expectation of what a pitcher should be able to do in the SEC, especially within the context of how offensive the league was this year. I go Paul Skeens. To me, it's hard to make too much of an argument for anyone else.
Safe travels down to Baton Rouge. We'll see you this weekend, Joe. Thanks so much.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. See you, buddy.
Joe Healy, D1 Baseball SEC Extra. He and Mark Etheridge do an awesome job previewing everything. So head over to D1 Baseball and get a subscription. I hope LSU's playing a couple more weeks, and you can get a lot of great info over there at D1. We'll take a timeout. I'm thinking about sticking with baseball here and going with Stravinsky-Milazzo discussion. We'll see when we come back next.
This is on Palmer. Our listeners fire up their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
Follow us on Twitter at 1045ESPN to cast your vote in the Citizens Bank and Trust Poll of the Day. Vote daily inside Off the Bench, live at lunch on Palmer. And after further review, Citizens Bank and Trust brings you the Poll of the Day via Twitter at 1045ESPN.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Hey there, little buddy. What's the matter?
What's the matter? My windows, siding, and my door. That's what's the matter.
Relief Windows can fix all of that. I got you. Pop, pop. What's up?
Oh my gosh, look!
Curb appeal. That's a good-looking neighborhood. ReliefWindows.com.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Hey, it's Matt Musso. Join me Monday through Friday for your daily update on LSU baseball with Musso at the Box, presented by New Orleans Flooring, wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google, and check out New Orleans Flooring. 2 locations, Metairie and Prairieville, or NOLAFlooring.com.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
Charles Hanniger, join us for the Friday edition of Live at Lunch. We are live at Rufino's starting at 11 a.m. Super regional action will start when we do, and we're previewing more of LSU in Kentucky. Live at Lunch, 11 a.m. weekdays, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Thanks to Joe Healy for hanging out with us, as he always does on Thursdays at 2:15. I kind of left this segment empty to play with. I had some Dalvin Cook thoughts with the Saints, had some LSU thoughts, but what I want to get into a little bit here is the catcher decision for Jay Johnson. And it's just not as simple as Kentucky runs a lot, Milazzo. It's not as simple as Kentucky bunts a lot, Milazzo. It's not as simple as Belosso's got to be in there, Travinsky's got to be in there, go. It's not as simple as looking at fielding percentage. There are a lot of different layers that go into this decision, and certainly Jay will consider them all. And he's got more information than I do, so by a long shot, a long shot. So I'm just going to give my thoughts on the general situation. Kentucky has stolen 91 bases this year. That's about 2 a game. And when they came to Baton Rouge in April, they stole 2 bases exactly in all 3 games. So 6 total. It's not like it's a track meet. It's not a track meet when Kentucky gets on base. It's not. It just stands out because we're in an era of hit the double, hit the homer, we're okay with the strikeout. So the way that they play is so counterintuitive to the way that most everyone else is playing, you notice it. There is value defensively in putting Milazzo back there, for sure. Milazzo caught all 3 games of the Kentucky series when they came to Baton Rouge. There's value in that for a couple of reasons. One, he's a better catch and throw guy. Yes, Travinsky had the huge strike him out, throw him out on Sunday. He can play the position. He can throw guys out. He's not a total disaster back there in all facets, but he was really bad on Monday receiving. He was just bad. And I'm not even talking about bunts and steals here. I'm talking about free bases. If you were listening back in the first hour, I told you about the weekend when Kentucky came to Baton Rouge and how LSU hit some guys and walked some guys and dropped a fly ball and allowed some bunt singles. And Kentucky's offense needs that. They can't sit there and bash you. They need a seeing eye single there. They need a bunt hit there. They need you to hit 2 guys in that inning. They need you to kick a ground ball in the infield or drop one in the outfield. They need you to throw a wild pitch or have a pass ball so they can get a free base. They cannot sit there and hit with you. They don't have the pop. But they can create enough runs by doing that. And quite simply and unequivocally, if Hayden Travinski is back there playing defense, LSU is not as strong receiving, defending, and throwing as they would be with Milazzo. I don't care what the numbers say. I don't care what the stats say. I'm just telling you, I've seen these guys play for 3 years. I know. So that adds into this decision. Now, Travinski is killing the ball. He's in the lineup, no questions asked. Beloso is killing the ball. And oh, by the way, Kentucky didn't have anybody that pitches left-handed. They're all right-handed. So here's what I will tell you what I think is going to happen and what I would do. I would start the weekend with Travinski back there because I think LSU can outscore Kentucky. I think with the lineup they trotted out there last weekend with Travinski and Morgan and Beloso and Dugas and Thompson and White and Pearson and Cruz and Joe Bear, that they will outscore Kentucky. But in the event that they've got a 3-run lead late, Milazzo's going to go in there because we talked to the play-by-play voice of the Wildcats on Tuesday. And I said, what if they get behind? Are they still aggressive? Do they still bunt? Do they still steal? He said, yeah, that's what they have to do. He said, you look at it situation by situation, but it's what you've got to do. And LSU can do some other things to help with the running game. You can pitch out. You can go to your lefties out of the bullpen, who LSU has confidence in. They have confidence in Cooper. They have confidence in Herring. They have confidence in Ackenhausen. Those guys can help you hold the running game. It's a multifaceted deal. So I think Jay's going to go with the same lineup. I think that that's the right call. But in the event that Kentucky gets rolling a little bit, you may need to make a change and cut that down. And that's kind of Joe's contingent. He thinks they should start Milazzo. I don't think that's going to happen. Alex's numbers are really good offensively this year relative to what he's been in his LSU career. He's still a massive step back from basically Beloso. It's basically Milazzo or Beloso. Unless you want to play Beloso at first, put Morgan out in left field, and take Pearson out of the lineup, which I vehemently would disagree with on both levels. I don't want Pearson out of the lineup, and I don't want Morgan playing left field. So it's a layered decision. It's not black and white. It's not simple. And there are a lot of things that go into it, and you don't have to do the same thing every game. You can do it based on who you have pitching, who they have pitching, kind of what the situation in the series is. All those things matter. But I think if you start game one with Paul Skeens and you feel like he's got a really good chance to strike guys out and hold them to at max, 3 or 4 runs in 7 or 8 innings, I feel really good that LSU's going to score more than that, especially with Travinski and Beloso in the lineup. So that's my 2 cents. But if we get to the box and see the lineup on Saturday and you've got Alex Milazzo catching, I'm not going to bat an eye at that. I don't think that's outlandish at all. It's a complicated thing, but LSU's 2 wins away from Omaha. Got to make some complicated decisions, so can't wait to get out there. We're going to be at Rouse's tomorrow. Very excited about that. We'll be there for my show from 1 to 3, Matt's show 3 to 6, Rouse's, Burbank, and Lee. So we invite y'all to come on out, watch us broadcast, hang out with us a little bit, do your grocery shopping for the weekend, get ready for Super Regional Baseball. Appreciate Rouse's for having us out tomorrow. We'll take one more time out, come back and close it up on the Hunt Palmer Show.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Love telling you about One Bath and Closets. The website's onebathandclosets.com. Check it out. You can see all the great work that they do. I was with David Duvall a couple weeks ago. We were sitting down, chatting about some things, and he showed me some pictures of some of the awesome work that they do, taking just old, stale, rectangular closets and making a gorgeous, customized closets with different cubbies and drawers that looks good and functions great and is customized to your wardrobe. He said 90% of the people that he talks to don't have enough shoe storage. They don't have enough places to put their shoes. If your shoes are all bunched up in the corner or stacked up somewhere and you're digging through them depending on where you're headed, maybe your significant other's doing the same thing, they can help you. One Bath and Closets. Go to the website, onebathandclosets.com. Request a free consultation. He'll come to your home. He'll look at your closet. He'll give you a questionnaire. What do you have? What do you need? and they'll customize a closet to your specifications. You can check out their testimonials on the website. You can request that consultation or look at some pictures of their great work. It's onebathandclosets.com, onebathandclosets.com.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
The importance of doing this fortified program and offering it to people down here is, number one, the only real chance you're going to get to do this is when you put on a new roof or build new. And through companies like HUDCO, who's kind of leading the way in this thing, it's going to offer the customers a huge advantage in the insurance market and the price of their insurance.
You know, we're not looking to make a fortune off fortifying. We're trying to give you a better product than our competitor at the moment. I'm trying to do something that he can. I'm trying to give you something better. So a lot of these insurance jobs, you're getting a re-roof, you're only paying your deductible. Let's sit down and talk about the fortified and let's see what it does to your insurance premium. You're getting a steal.
Yeah.
You're getting a brand new roof and a fortified certificate for your deductible, essentially. I think we're rocking and rolling.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Moscona inviting you to join us for Thursday's AFR, presented by the Aesthetic Medicine and Anti-Aging Clinics of Louisiana. LSU wrapping up preps for Super Regionals against Kentucky. Saints wrapping up OTAs. We'll talk about it. Join us 3 to 6, 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
I just saw this story on my Twitter, and it's pretty funny. So there was, in Cincinnati, there was a high school that had a golf tournament, presumably as a fundraiser. And one of the players on their high school golf team was on the 145-yard par 3 sixth hole as a quote-unquote celebrity hitter. And I guess he got to hit the tee shot for you, if you paid for it or whatever. And presumably it's a scramble. I don't know. But he was hitting the tee shot for just about every group that went through. 145-yard par 3. He made 3 hole-in-ones in one day. I realize you don't get to sit on the 6th tee and hit wedge shots all day when you are playing a round. So it's not quite the same as making a hole-in-one in a round. But dunking 3 in one day from 145 is a pretty solid day at the office. So shout out to Colin Bobowski, who dunked 3 yesterday in a charity tournament. Let's play Take It or Leave It.
All right, starting off here, the Suns are parting ways with Christopher Paul.
Yes.
A NOLA reunion is coming. Take it or leave it.
I'll probably leave it. I think it's a great fit. I think it would be awesome if he allowed CJ to play off the ball a little bit. You had him and then CJ and then BI and Zion, and presumably you had Jonas back. Depends on kind of what they want to do in the moving forward. But making CJ not the primary ball handler in the offense and not having to lean on your Kyra Lewises of the world and that type of guy, I think Jose Alvarado, I think, would be a great fit. I just don't think that's where Chris Paul wants to go play. I think he's chasing that elusive ring, and while the Pelicans do have a really good core, it would appear, they haven't done anything. So, you're leaving a place where you had Booker and Durant. It was that proven, and you're going to go somewhere else. I would think it would be somewhere that had a few more skins on the wall than a couple of high draft picks who have potentially a lot of great potential and haven't realized really anything.
Yeah, he's also not going to be very cheap, and then you also have to worry about his health. You don't want to be I wouldn't want to be relying on him.
He is old, and he gets hurt in the playoffs every year.
Yep. Former MLB All-Star CeCe Sabathia told the Pat McAfee show that Shohei Ohtani is the best player he's ever seen play baseball, I think.
I think to ever play baseball.
To ever play baseball, yeah. Best player to ever play baseball.
I mean, that's a lot, but, I'll take it.
I'll take it.
I mean, I realize that that's going to get a lot of pushback, but, he's probably top 10 as a pitcher and a hitter in this era. He throws 100 miles an hour. He hits balls further than anybody else. If you want to make that argument to me, I'm going to sit here and listen to it. I'm not going to dismiss it. I've seen guys who are better hitters. I've seen guys who are better pitchers, but this is not like a deal where, he's a pretty good hitter and pretty good pitcher. He's elite at both, and the Angels still can't get out of their own way and make the playoffs with him. So I'm not here to tell you that's not true. It's both from a production standpoint, how many guys he strikes out, what his whip is and his WAR is as a pitcher, how many home runs he hits, and how productive he is as a hitter. And it's that and the highlight reel nature of it. He's not like a sinker slider guy or what. No, he's blowing it 100 and he's hitting 460-foot home runs. He does things that the best of the best at that position, at either position, does. I'm here for it.
National Player of the Year in college basketball, Zach Edey, is headed back to Purdue for another year. Purdue will make a Final Four run. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave it. They never do. They're always good. They're good every year, and then they never show up and make that run in the tournament. Matt Painter's done an awesome job. They recruit the guys they want, and they've put some guys in the NBA, and they've had Big Ten Players of the Year and a National Player of the Year in this case, and they've always got the guys, and they never make it happen. And I guess the best way to do it is to knock on the door as many times as you can, and eventually the door flies open. The Mike Bianco method, where if you keep putting a decent product out there, eventually it breaks your way. But they're still waiting up in Spokane. They're still waiting in West Lafayette for the whole thing to kind of come together. At least Gonzaga's gotten all the way there. Purdue hasn't. So I'll go ahead and leave that one.
All right, last one here. The NBA is considering making the All-Star game USA versus the world. Take it or leave it.
That I will take.
I'll take it.
It sounds awesome on its face. I don't know if you can get the NBA guys to care like they do in the Olympics and to play really hard, but that's incredibly compelling. If you've got Jokic and Giannis and Luka kind of running that show, and you've got Steph and LeBron and Durant, and you can go on and on. Jimmy Butler, if you want to go that far. You've got the best players in the league playing, and I think there would be some stakes there, some pride as USA, some pride for a foreign-led group. I mean, the European guys kind of team up for the Ryder Cup in golf and take some pride in representing that. So, I mean, the All-Star game right now is a highlight show and a dunk competition. Is not necessarily the most watchable thing I've ever seen. If you could ramp the stakes up and get them to care, I think a USA versus the world would be awesome. I love watching Team USA basketball. I've talked many times about the 08 Olympics, where I watched every game that Team USA played, and it was just so awesome to watch those guys play for their country, play hard, and put that collection of players together. It's just rare that you can do something like that, and I think if you were to create some stakes and to get USA and the world to play against each other, I think that would be really, really cool. So I would be way in on that, and I do think it would be competitive. There was a time where it would not have been remotely competitive. I do think now that it would be competitive because there are enough players from outside the United States that are elite level players, that are some of the best players in the league, that could make that certainly very competitive. I don't think there's any country right now that would stare down the United States and beat them in a 10-on-10 But you start talking about 10-on-10, the world versus USA, I think you've really got something there. So I'd be all in for that. That's going to do it for Take It or Leave It and our show here on this Thursday. Opened up the show talking about the Golden Spikes finalists, Paul Skeens, Dylan Cruz, Jack Caglione. What do I think is going to happen? And then I talked LSU and Kentucky series back in April, kind of walked through the details of what took place in that series. We talked Saints. Will Lutz, is his position in a little bit of trouble, or is there competition? We talked about that at 1:30, and then finished up the hour with the anniversary, the 27th anniversary, said 17th like 10 times, 27th anniversary of Warren Morris's home run in the College World Series to win it. The Athletic ranked college football quarterbacks in tiers. That was in hour number 2. Joe Healy previewing the Super Regionals at 2:15. And then some thoughts on LSU's catching spot at 2:30. Go back and catch it on demand, 1045 ESPN.com's on demand tab, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify. It is all there. Also on YouTube, you can find all of our stuff. We'll be at Rouse's tomorrow, fired up to be there. Rouse's Burbank and Lee. Matt Moscona going to drive you home on After Further You coming up next. See you tomorrow from Rouse's, the Hunt Palmer Show.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play. With safety and tech to